It was raining that night. Not the gentle kind. The kind that soaks through your clothes and leaves you standing still, unsure if you should move forward or turn back. I remember standing there, heart racing, fingers trembling, knowing that one simple choice would change everything. I hesitated. Because this wasn't new. I had already said no. Not once, not twice, but 7 different times. 7 moments where I convinced myself I was certain. 7 moments where I chose safety over risk, distance over closeness, control over feeling. But I was there, confused, unprepared, afraid of how much his absence had started to matter. I used to believe that when love is right, it comes easily. That when someone is meant for you, there's no doubt, no resistance, no fear. But that night challenged everything I thought I knew. Because if I was so sure before, why did my heart feel so uncertain now? What changed? Was it him? Was it timing? Or was it me finally running out of reasons to hide? This isn't a story about love at first sight. It isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about persistence that never demanded. Fear that disguised itself as independence. And a moment that arrived quietly, on a rainy night, when I least expected my heart to open. This isn't a perfect love story. It's a true one. And it didn't begin with yes. At that time in my life, I had learned how to stand on my own. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I was old enough to know what heartbreak feels like, and young enough to still believe I could avoid it if I tried hard enough. I had already loved once, deeply, honestly, and I had paid for it with pieces of myself I didn't know how to get back. So I adapted. I became independent and careful, self-sufficient in a way that looked strong from the outside, but felt exhausting on the inside. I told myself I was healed, that I was fine being alone. That peace mattered more than passion. But the truth was, I was tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Tired of starting over. Tired of explaining my scars. Tired of hoping someone would stay, only to learn that hope doesn't always protect you. I wanted love. Of course I did. But I wanted it without the risk. Without the uncertainty. Without the pain that always seemed to follow. And because that kind of love doesn't exist, I convinced myself I didn't need it at all. My days became predictable. Quiet evenings. Late nights scrolling through thoughts I never shared with anyone. I got used to the silence. So used to it that noise felt uncomfortable. So used to being alone that connection felt suspicious. Love, to me, wasn't romantic anymore. It was complicated, messy, unsafe. I had seen what it could take from you when it leaves. So I built walls. Not out of pride. Not out of cruelty. But out of memory. Every boundary I had was earned. Every hesitation had a reason. Every no was my way of saying, I don't want to break again. He didn't arrive like a storm. He didn't demand attention. He didn't try to impress me or change me. He just showed up. Consistently. Quietly. At first, I didn't think much of it. People come and go, that was something I understood well. So when he stayed kind after the first rejection, I told myself it was temporary. When he stayed respectful after the second, I told myself he'd eventually get tired. By the third time I said no, I started to wonder why he hadn't disappeared yet. By the fourth time, I started to feel uncomfortable with how safe his presence felt. Because safety had become unfamiliar to me. Each time I turned him down, I told myself I was being honest. And maybe I was. But what I didn't admit, not even to myself, was that every refusal was also a test. A test to see if he would push, or pressure, or punish me for choosing myself. He never did. And that confused me more than rejection ever could. Looking back now, I can see it clearly. Life kept placing him in my path, not loudly, not forcefully, just enough for me to notice. As if fate was knocking softly, waiting to see if I would ever open the door. But at the time, I called it coincidence. I called it timing. I called it bad luck. Anything except what it really was. I wasn't rejecting him because I didn't care. I was rejecting him because I cared too much to risk discovering how much he might matter. So I stayed guarded. I stayed composed. I stayed in control. And I told myself that walking away was strength. I didn't know yet that love wasn't trying to chase me. It was trying to wait for me. And I had no idea that every quiet no was leading us closer to one night, where my defenses would finally grow tired before my heart did. I didn't meet him in a moment worth remembering. No music. No sparks. No instant certainty. It was ordinary. So ordinary that I almost forgot it mattered. A shared space. A routine place I passed through every day without thinking. The kind of place where nothing ever changes, until one day, something quietly does. He was just there. Not standing out. Not trying to be noticed. Not asking to be chosen. And maybe that's why I noticed him at all. Our first interaction wasn't memorable because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. There was no tension. No performance. No competition for attention. Just calm. The kind that doesn't demand anything from you. The kind that makes you lower your shoulders, without realizing they were tense. It unsettled me. I was used to interest that came wrapped in urgency, in charm, in expectation. But his attention felt different. Not rushed. Not forced. He listened more than he spoke. And when he spoke, it wasn't to impress. It was to understand. That should have felt comforting. Instead, it confused me. Because when someone doesn't push, you're left alone with your own thoughts. And mine weren't ready. I could tell his interest was real. Not because he said anything special, but because he didn't say too much. He never tried to convince me of who he was. He simply showed up as himself. And I didn't know what to do with that. I wasn't ready to be seen without effort. Without pretending I had everything figured out. Without hiding behind strength. So when he asked, gently, honestly, I said no. Not harshly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet no. I expected things to change after that. People usually pull away once they realize they won't get what they want. But he didn't disappear. He didn't linger awkwardly either. He respected the boundary exactly as it was. And somehow, that stayed with me. His patience lingered. His consistency lingered. The way he never made me feel wrong for saying no lingered. And then, there was the absence. Not punishment. Not silence meant to hurt. I felt space. The kind that lets you feel what's missing. I started noticing the moments he wasn't there. The calm I had taken for granted. The ease I hadn't named. I told myself it meant nothing. That this was just habit. That I was imagining things. But something had shifted. Not spoken. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to pause one day. And realize I remembered his presence more clearly than any grand moment I had tried to forget. I didn't fall for him then. Not yet. But I stopped being untouched. And I didn't know it at the time, but the part of me that said no so easily had begun to hesitate, quietly and irreversibly. After that, our paths kept crossing. Not intentionally. Not dramatically. Just naturally. And yet, the closer he felt, the more I pulled back. He stood under the rain like it didn't matter, like the discomfort was secondary to being present. When I finally found myself alone, the quiet felt different. Every thought I had been avoiding rushed in at once. I felt overwhelmed, not by what he had said, but by everything I hadn't. The weight of my choices pressed in on me. Every rejection replayed itself, one after another, each one suddenly sharper than before. I wondered how many times I had made him feel unwanted when all he had done was show up with honesty. And for the first time, guilt replaced certainty. Not the kind that asks for punishment, but the kind that asks for truth. What if I had waited too long? What if patience has a limit I never considered? What if that night came just a little too late? Those thoughts followed me everywhere. I started looking back, not to blame myself, but to understand myself. I revisited every reason I had given him. Every fear I dressed up as logic. Every excuse that sounded responsible but felt hollow now. I told myself I wasn't ready, but what I really meant was that I didn't trust myself to survive love again. I said I didn't feel a spark. But what I was really afraid of was choosing something quiet in a world that taught me love should hurt to feel real. I blamed timing, because timing doesn't ask you to be brave. I said I was healing, without admitting that healing doesn't mean hiding forever. I told him I didn't want to hurt him, while ignoring the fact that distance can wound just as deeply as rejection. And when I finally said I was scared, that was the closest I had ever come to the truth. I hadn't resisted him. I had resisted vulnerability. Somewhere along the way, I learned that strength meant standing alone. That independence meant never needing anyone too deeply. That control meant safety. But that night cracked those beliefs open. I realized that opening your heart isn't weakness, It's courage without armor. And his persistence, the thing I had questioned so many times, was never pressure. It was patience. He never tried to change my mind. Never tried to corner my feelings. Never made my fear feel inconvenient. He waited, not because he felt entitled to love, but because he respected my pace. And that realization hurt. Because patience like that isn't common, and it isn't guaranteed. I mourned the time I couldn't get back. The moments we spent circling something honest instead of stepping into it. The version of myself who stayed guarded longer than necessary. I acknowledged my mistakes, not with shame, but with clarity. I had confused self-protection with self-respect. And in doing so, I almost walked past something real. Growth doesn't always arrive with relief. Sometimes it arrives with regret. But regret, I learned, can still be gentle. It can still teach you how to choose differently next time. That night didn't give me answers. It gave me honesty. And honesty, once it finds you, doesn't leave you the same. In the days that followed, everything felt unsteady. Not chaotic, but it was just fragile. I moved through my routines like I always had, but nothing felt automatic anymore. Every quiet moment left space for thoughts I couldn't silence. Every pause carried his presence, even when he wasn't there. I felt overwhelmed in a way I hadn't expected. Not because something had ended, but because something real had finally been acknowledged. The guilt crept in slowly. I replayed each rejection differently now. Not as moments of strength, but as moments of fear disguised as certainty. I wondered how many times I had smiled politely, while he carried disappointment quietly. How many times he had accepted my no, without ever making me feel like I owed him anything. And that scared me. Because guilt isn't about what someone demands from you, it's about what they never did. I started to fear that I had waited too long. That patience, no matter how gentle, might eventually turn into resignation. I imagined him finally choosing himself. Finally walking away with the same grace he had shown me all along. And the thought of that hurt more than I expected. So I looked inward. Not to punish myself, but to understand myself. I asked the questions I had avoided for years. Why did love feel like a threat instead of a gift? Why did safety feel boring? Why did calm feel unfamiliar? The answers weren't flattering. I had learned love through instability, through intensity, through emotional highs that came with painful lows. So when something steady appeared, I didn't recognize it as love. I saw it as absence. Absence of chaos. Absence of uncertainty. Absence of fear. And I mistook that for emptiness. But it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. And peace had never been part of my definition of love. That realization changed everything. I began to understand that vulnerability isn't giving up control. It's choosing honesty over comfort. That letting someone see you isn't weakness, it is trust. And his persistence was never an attempt to wear me down. It was patience born from respect. He never tried to rush my healing. Never questioned my boundaries. Never treated my fear as inconvenience. He stayed present without expectation. And that kind of love doesn't announce itself. It waits. I grieved then quietly and deeply. Not just for the time we lost, but for the version of myself who didn't believe she deserved love without struggle. I mourned the unnecessary distance, the hesitation, the moments I chose certainty over curiosity. I acknowledged my emotional mistakes, not with shame, but with compassion, because I had been doing the best I could with the lessons I had been taught. Growth doesn't erase the past, it reframes it. And as the days passed, I understood something else too. Love doesn't punish you for being afraid. But it does ask you, eventually, to choose. And I knew then that no matter what happened next, I could no longer pretend this hadn't mattered. Something real had passed through my life. And it had changed me. Whether I was brave enough to follow it was the question that remained. There comes a moment when avoiding a decision becomes a decision on its own. I felt it clearly then. I could either reach out or let the silence do what silence always does, slowly turn possibility into memory. Neither choice felt easy. Both required letting go of something. If I reached out, I would have to face myself, my hesitation, my mistakes, my fear of being seen without armor. If I didn't, I would have to accept that some love stories don't end because they fail. They end because someone was too afraid to begin. I sat with that truth longer than I want to admit. I replayed the rainy night again. His words, his calm, the way he never asked me to be anything other than honest. And I realized something simple and terrifying. I missed him. Not the idea of him, not the comfort, not the attention, but him. So I reached out. Not with an apology that begged for forgiveness. Not with a confession meant to rewrite the past. Just honesty. When we finally spoke, it was quieter than I expected. No tension. No rehearsed speeches. Just two people standing in the truth they had been circling for so long. I told him I had been afraid, not of him, but of how much peace he brought into a life that had been built on surviving chaos. I told him I had mistaken calm for emptiness, safety for boredom, patience for waiting too long. He didn't interrupt, didn't rush to reassure me. When it was his turn, he spoke simply. He said he never wanted me to choose him out of fear of losing him. That he didn't stay to be rewarded. He stayed because he cared, and because caring to him didn't require certainty. There were no grand promises between us. No declarations of forever. No attempt to undo the past. Just clarity. Honest, unromantic, grounding clarity. We acknowledged what we were, and what we weren't. We understood that love doesn't always begin with fireworks. Sometimes it begins with a conversation that finally stops running from itself. And so, we chose to move forward slowly. Intentionally. Without pretending we were suddenly fearless. Without demanding guarantees. Just openness, respect, and the courage to stay present. Love didn't arrive open for us. It didn't crash in or demand its place. It waited. Through hesitation, through rejection, through silence and rain and doubt. It waited quietly until fear loosened its grip enough for honesty to step forward. And in that quiet beginning, I learned something I wish I had known earlier. Some love stories aren't about being chosen immediately. They're about being chosen honestly, when you're finally ready to stop protecting yourself from the very thing you've been longing for. Looking back now, with distance and clarity, I understand something I couldn't see then. True love isn't proven by how loudly someone chases you. And it isn't defined by how intensely it begins. There's a fine line between persistence and obsession, and I learned that difference by watching how carefully he stayed on the right side of it. Obsession demands. It pressures. It treats love like a reward for endurance. Persistence, the kind that changed me, does none of that. It waits without entitlement. It respects boundaries without resentment. It remains honest even when honesty doesn't guarantee anything in return. He never tried to convince me I was wrong for saying no. Never tried to outlast my fear by force. Never made my hesitation feel like a debt I owed him. That's how I learned that patience is not passivity. It's strength under control. And entitlement, no matter how romantic it sounds, has no place in real love. Timing taught me another truth. We talk so often about the right person at the wrong time, as if timing excuses everything. But the truth is, the right person always arrives at the right time, just not always for the reasons we expect. Sometimes they arrive to stay. And sometimes they arrive to change you. To show you what safety feels like. To challenge your definitions of love. To reveal the ways you've been surviving instead of living. Even if the timing isn't perfect, even if the story doesn't unfold the way you imagined, the impact is real. Because love isn't just about outcomes. It's about who you become along the way. I used to think love had to be intense to be meaningful. That it had to feel overwhelming, consuming, almost unbearable. But intensity fades. Chaos exhausts. What lasts is something quieter. Safety, respect. Love is choosing someone not because you're afraid to lose them, but because you're willing to stand beside them without losing yourself. Love is being able to say no, and still being met with kindness. Love is staying, not to claim ownership, but to offer presence. And maybe the most important thing I learned is this. Rejection doesn't always mean no. Sometimes it means, I don't know how yet. Sometimes it means, I'm afraid. Sometimes it means, I need time to unlearn what I thought love was. If this story proves anything, it's that love doesn't rush the heart. It waits until fear loosens its grip, until honesty finds its voice, until choice replaces avoidance. And when it finally arrives, slowly, patiently, truthfully, it feels less like being swept away, and more like coming home.